Good morning, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you the second wave of DLC for Fire Emblem Engage. Yes, already, because Nintendo decided to shadow drop the second wave of DLC just a couple of weeks after Engage released. Like, wow, that's fast. Wonder if we won't have to wait that long for the remaining waves. This particular wave is relatively straightforward to explain. You unlock 3 new paralogs, and completing these paralogs will unlock 3 new Emblem Rings. You've got Hector, who is one of the main characters from the original Fire Emblem on Game Boy Advance, Soren, the Master Tactician from Path of Radiance, and also returning in Radiant Dawn, the direct sequel, and finally, last but certainly not least, Camilla, the doting sister from Fire Emblem Fates. Each of their levels is a recreation of an iconic level in their respective games. At least I think Hector's is, because it's been a while since I've played Hector's Quest. The Berserker's Hollow is Hector's level, and that's inside a cave where there's a lot of poison spewing out of the walls, although I didn't really notice any difference in what the poison did. Thankfully, the game makes it pretty easy to tell where the poison is going to spew, although Hector is a pretty tough boss, I gotta say, although it felt really satisfying to take him down. Then Soren's level is my particular favorite. It's based on the Kaku Caves from Radiant Dawn, and it's a volcanic level where there's magma craters on the ground, and if either an ally or an enemy are standing on the craters, then fireballs will launch out of the background and deal damage. There's also the tips of the volcanoes themselves, which flying units can technically fly over, but it'll still damage them. And finally, the volcano will also spew smoke, which will eventually cause smoke tiles to appear on the map that will severely limit the unit's abilities. And so it's a nice, maze type of structure, and it manages to be even more challenging and much more graphically impressive than Radiant Dawn's level, and it has much better music to boot. Finally, Camilla's is based on one of those backstreet missions in Fire Emblem Fates Revelation. Rest in peace after the eShop closes, because unless you have the special edition of Fates, you'll never be able to play Revelation again. And Camilla's ability, basically she uses the power of her dragon vein to keep breaking the destructible objects so that it's easier for flyers to get to your units. Personally, I found that just having Alir do pretty much everything was the best strategy, and just having Atier stay behind and use her bow to attack the Pegasus Knights, because she could one-shot all of them, tended to get me through the whole battle, and that was probably the easiest out of the 3. Now, after you beat the battles, you will, of course, unlock the corresponding ring, and each ring, of course, has different abilities. So I will start out with Hector's, because it is honestly a lot of technical jargon for explaining his ability, so I've literally got my Switch pulled up here for my notes so that I don't speak a bunch of gibberish for you guys. You unlock a weapon called Wolf Bale, which when used, it can break through armor. His special ability is Quick Riposte? I don't know what that word is. And if you enter into that stance, then if he is attacked with 80% more health, then he will always follow up that attack. Then there's also Impenetrable, which is if he initiates the combat, grants more defense and resistance during combat, and for flying they will get 50% resistance. And finally, Storm's Eye, which is a passive ability, grants immunity to break, but the foe cannot follow up, and the unit follows up, for sword and axe users only. That was confusing. Thankfully, the other abilities are much more straightforward. Whoever equips Camilla has the passive ability of being able to fly, therefore greatly improving that unit's mobility, and I think also being able to bypass terrain effects, although I haven't particularly tested that ability. That unit can also use the dragon vein to make pools of water appear on the ground, similar to how Corrin's ability could do that, which decreases the stats and movement of the enemies. And finally, she can set the whole area on fire with her once per summon ability. And then there's Soren. Yes, we gotta love the Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn love. Like, seriously, re-release those games so that they're not $100. Soren's once per summon ability is the ability to attack with wind, thunder, and fire all at once, kind of like the Houses Unite ability from the House Leader's Ring. Then there's Flare, which lets the unit drain health from the opponent as well as decreasing resistance. A new magical ability that you get is Bolting, which is like a long-range lightning attack, which is pretty common in the older Fire Emblem games. I'm surprised that it's a special weapon here. And as for Soren's passive ability, you can also choose to assign a decoy, meaning that you can select an ally and have the units target that ally instead of who they would normally target, which fits so perfectly with Soren's character because he literally, well, he explains it in the game. He literally asks Ike to sacrifice one of their allies for the sake of a decisive victory instead of considering that unit's feelings. He's definitely the rudest of the bunch, and some of you might be a bit put off by how cold and calculating he is. Now, if you were hoping for new music tracks for these battles, prepare to be sorely disappointed, as you simply get the respective new arrangement that you got in the paralogs for the existing 12 rings. So for example, Soren's paralog music is going to be the same as Ike's. Hector's is going to be the same as Lynn's, and Camilla gets Corin's. That's not a bad thing, as these remixes are amazing, especially the one that Soren has, which combines some amazing tunes from Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. But if you haven't played those other paralogs yet, then brace yourself for some amazing music. I also really like the little touches, like the fact that if you, or after you beat a battle, if you have that corresponding emblem ring from the base game that's of the same game, then you'll get a conversation between the two emblem rings, such as Ike and Soren having a little buddy-buddy. And the enemies also scale according to your unit level. So I had 2 save files to test this. I had the one that I used for filming Wave 1, where all of my opponents were near like level 6, level 10-ish, and it was a decent challenge. But then I had my end game file, and the units put up significantly more of a fight. So I think that Wave 2, while not as grand and majestic as having the house leaders, at the same time offers more fan service, more challenging levels, not much else, but I'm not complaining too much. I think that it's always great to introduce more characters from Fire Emblem series so that fans can, like, celebrate the series more. So I do still think that the Engage expansion pass is probably worth a buy if you want more of these characters. But at the same time, now that Nintendo announced that Wave 4 is going to have new story content, those of you that want to, like, experience more story might want to hold off until there. So with that, thank you very much for watching. I'd like to thank my patrons Matthew Rakowski, Sploon Ghost, and I think Splatcat, I'll have to double check that, for supporting me on Patreon. The link will be in the description if you'd like to be a supporter as well. And until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye!